Today, boys and girls, we're going to learn a little bit about welding. And we're going to teach about the manual process of welding because the master welder has sent us to do the manual process because you've got to do the work because the weld isn't going to do itself. And just in case any of you were wondering, I did bring a King James Version Bible here tonight. We're not going to be using that, though. Anyway, a lot of people in this world, they don't pay attention to what they're doing because they haven't talked to the master welder and they haven't considered the blueprints. What do they do first? Well, they don't tack their metal where it should be. You see, they got it all misaligned. And if you're all misaligned, you're not gonna get a weld that's gonna pass the pen test in the end, amen? Another thing that goes right along with that, and what it is it's incomplete fusion. I just want to give that, but I got a story to go with it, okay? Back when I was in welding school, and I started running my bead, and I tell you, when I was done, it looked real good. And so I brought it to the master welder. You know what he told me? You know, it looks real good and everything, but I noticed one thing. It's got incomplete fusion. And that's where the metals aren't joined together properly. You know what we did? He took that piece of metal and he smacked it on the stairs and it broke apart into pieces. It looked real good on the outside, but I'll tell you, if you didn't notice the little line on the side of the weld, that the whole thing just fell apart. Moving on here, we're going to talk a little bit about undercut. When you're going along and you're welding, and if you're not taking the time to let that weld fill in the way it ought to be, or if you're weaving, you're not going far enough over to the toe of the weld, I'll tell you what's going to happen. You're going to have rough edges at the end of that weld, and it's not going to be completely filled up the way it should be. What we're looking for is a flush weld. Another thing that happens is insufficient penetration. And that's when you're just running along and maybe you don't have your machine turned up high enough. If you got your machine cold, then you're not gonna get sufficient penetration. What's gonna happen is you're just gonna be welding along. You're just gonna be running that bead. But you're not taking the time that you ought to be, or your machine's too cold. You gotta be hooked up to the right machine. And for one more thing, I tell you what, you need to be grounded to the electricity, because if you're not properly grounded, you're not gonna get weld or nothing. But anyway, insufficient penetration. I just want to mention one more thing, and that's just where the weld just piles up and piles up, but yet it's not fused to the metal, so it's just gonna break apart. It's like you're not even doing anything. I tell you, a lot of the Christians that we got in here today have got so much concavity in their weld. Let's go back to students, why don't we? I just got veering off a little bit. But anyway, the students that we got so much concavity in their weld. And you know what that is? It's where the weld starts to dip in. And that's when you just start dipping into the world. You don't really care. You don't really care about what the weld looks like or if it's holding what you got a little bit too much dip in there because you're not holding it in long enough. There's a lot of people out there, and they call it turning over a new leaf. and they take their weld, and they see all that slag on there, and they say, man, that looks awful. I gotta do something about this. So what they do is they take a little chipping hammer, and they start chipping away at that slag. And the slag starts falling off, and it looks real good. The weld starts to look real good. But you know what? And they start to feel like they've got it made. Like they're okay. But when we get down to the bend test, and we do the penetration test, we're gonna see that their whole life is full of slag inclusions and porosity, and their weld is never going to hold no matter where it's on. I mean, if you're doing something little, it might not be such a big deal. But if you're on a bridge, and that's what we're striving for. The weld that's going to last for eternity. That's what we're looking for. And see, the master welder, when he goes to do the big bend test, he's looking for a weld that's gonna last. And if your life is full of slag inclusions and porosity, and perhaps any other one of these discontinuities, you're gonna fail. I just want you to keep that in mind tonight. Just give me a second. So like I was saying, if you're gonna have a weld that lasts, and a weld that's going to last, you've got to pay attention to the blueprints, and you've got to listen to the master welder. Because if you're gonna have a weld that lasts as long as that bridge is supposed to last, and eventually here on Earth, we're gonna have to replace that bridge. But your weld is supposed to last for as long as it should, to where you're not endangering the lives of others. Amen.